Welcome to the Science of Habit webinar series. This is a series that is intentionally designed around weight loss, but mind you could use some of these science-backed strategies for other habits that you may want to either break or form. Quick disclaimer on this is not for serious addiction. That requires professional help. This is specifically for those little habits that you're wanting to instill or things that you're trying to get out of your life. So webinar 1 is just a foundational knowledge around the science of habit. Number 2, we're going to get into untangling bad habits, so really trying to break those habits that are holding you back. And then webinar 3 is actually just about trying to create and instill those really good habits that are going to keep your health moving forward. Now, many of you may have heard that it takes 21 days to create a habit. This is actually a myth that sort of was born out of a plastic surgeon, assuming it took his clients 21 days to get used to their new features. And so it's certainly not based in any sort of science. And in fact, it's emotion that creates habit. We do things if it makes us feel good. Okay, so if something makes you feel good, you are likely to do it again. And that's where habits are born. There's 3 types of habits. So there is uphill habits. Now, these are the habits that require ongoing attention and they're pretty easy to stop. So things like getting out of bed, going for a run, going to the gym, eating lots of vegetables and fruit, they're not as easy to maintain because the feel-good factor isn't instantaneous. Now, the downhill habits, these are the ones that are pretty easy to maintain. Okay, so these are the ones that they're difficult to stop. They're the ones that we probably want to try and untangle and limit in our lives. And these are things like hitting the snooze alarm all the time or eating too much chocolate or wine or beer, whatever it may be. Now then there's free-fall habits, and that's what we won't be covering. These are the ones which is serious addiction that requires professional help. Some credit here to a mentor who put together the training that I went through to become a certified habit coach, and this is Dr. BJ Fogg. So Dr. Fogg is a professor at Stanford University. He's famed for teaching Silicon Valley all about human behavior and habit creation. Now, Dr. Fogg stresses the importance of using his knowledge for good and not for manipulating or evil purposes. And so, it's Dr. Fogg's sort of teaching is the reason that we've now got notifications and things on our phone, which Silicon Valley kind of implemented on the back of his training. Dr. Fogg's formula requires that for a behavior or habit to occur, we need 3 things to line up at the same time. And this is our environment, the prompt, okay? So think about what is around you that's making you perform or remind you to perform a behavior or action. This is the prompt, really key component. Then we have the ability, okay? So it needs to be easy to perform that behavior. If it's too hard, you're unlikely to do it. And then we have the motivation, which is actually the weakest link in the equation. So it's about how motivated or unmotivated you can make a behavior to either stop it or form it. Now, Dr. Fogg's behavior model looks like this. Now, you'll see this multiple times throughout this series, so don't worry, it can be a little bit overwhelming looking at it, but I'll give a brief explanation here. We have motivation on the y-axis and ability on the x-axis. A behavior occurs if it's to the right of that green action line. All right, let me give you a couple of examples to see if this will make sense. If you are wanting to create a habit about going to the gym, it can be hard to do, particularly if you haven't done it for some time. So we're more here at this end of the x-axis in this hard to do area. Now, to go to the gym, you've got to be really motivated. So let's say you want to go to the gym in January. So it's after Christmas, you're overindulged. Motivation is likely high to get back in shape and, get off a few of those kilos that you've probably consumed over Christmas. But then let's say around July, motivation may not be as high. And this is where the difference between going to the gym consistently and not consistently can come in because motivation tends to dip over time. Now, if we look at something like eating chocolate, okay, so very easy to do and it's quite motivating because you get a dopamine hit as soon as you've eaten it because of the amount of sugar and fat in it, and so it's easy to do and it's motivating, which is why it's such an easy habit to form. We're going to look firstly at the prompt side of things, and I really want you to consider your environment here because the prompts are crucial in habit formation and untangling bad habits. So if we're looking at, say, a few examples here, maybe eating less chocolate after dinner. A key there is you don't want chocolate in the house because if it's not there, you simply can't eat it. That doesn't mean you can't get in the car and go and get some, but if it's not in the house, the effort to go and get some is more challenging. If it's eating more fruit, then having it cut up at eye level in the fridge is really important because the environment is then supportive to you being able to eat more fruit. If you want to stop reading your phone in bed at night, then simply not having the phone in bed at night is a pretty good start. Maybe having it out in the lounge room or the kitchen. And so thinking about your environment and how it's working with or against you to create the habits or break the habits you want to do is really important. Then we've got the ability, okay? So if it's a habit that you want to form, how easy can you make the habit? How easy can you make the action to create that habit? And so there's 5 areas that we look at. The 5 areas that we look at are time, money, physical effort, mental effort, and routine. If we're trying to create a habit, can we make it quicker, cheaper, physically easier, mentally less challenging, and part of our existing routine? If you want to break a habit, can we make it take longer? Can we make it more expensive? Can we make it physically more challenging or mentally more challenging? Or can we make it clash with our routine? So the ability chain is where you would focus your effort when trying to really install that habit. Motivation is the last part of the equation and it's the weakest link because it's so vulnerable and changes over time. We do try and focus on motivation. So you try and decrease the motivation for something if you want to break a habit or you want to increase the motivation if you want to form a habit. And we'll look at some examples of this in the coming episodes. So back to the formula, we always start from right to left. We look at the environment and the prompts. So think about a habit you want to form. What are the prompts or triggers that you've got set up in your environment that are conducive to it? How easy can we make it? And how motivating is the action to perform? So up next is untangling bad habits. I want you to think hard. Is there any habits that you want to break? And then what we're going to do is give some solid examples and steps through that about how you might break those habits.